What's going on, guys? It's Frito here for your Overwatch. Been playing the beta a ton. Although we should be expecting a balance patch soon, I think the general rules of how Overwatch 2 is intended to be played are kind of set in stone. The heroes might shift position, but I think we're in for a much more stable experience. This is a game that wants you to get into duels. The neutral fight is super important since it takes longer to get your ults. These trends aren't going away, even if the hero hierarchy might get mixed up. That being said, though, due to the learning curve of the game, there's some heroes that I think are more of a noob trap and are succeeding early on before a lot of the knowledge of how to play Overwatch 2 has really become widespread in the community. It's a brand new game and there's a lot of things to teach. We'll get into it all right after a quick message from today's video sponsor.
Today, Manscaped wants to remind you to check your balls. That's right, fellas, April is Cancer Awareness Month, and did you know that every hour a man gets diagnosed with testicular cancer? And it's the most common form of cancer in men aged 15 to 35. Manscaped is putting their money where our balls are. They're donating $50,000 to the Testicular Cancer Society, which assists men who are afflicted by the disease. To commemorate the campaign, they are promoting a Lawnmower 4.0 TCS Special Edition. Manscaped is only making 10,000 of these. They're going to be a collector's item at the very least, or pick up an extra one. It's for a good cause. I use Manscaped on my whole body, head to toe. You think this beard is looking clean? You should see my... For me, Manscaped is a no-brainer because I used them for years before they even sponsored the channel. I love these things. They're the best. Shave balls, save balls. You guys know the deal. Waterproof, skin-safe technology. This is the greatest of all time razor for your sensitive areas. Take our link in the description to head on over to manscaped.com/TCS to learn how to do a thorough self-examination. It's a life or death issue. Check your balls out, boys. And while you're there, you may want to grab one of the few Lawnmower 4.0 TCS Special Edition purple bad boys right here. Get them before they're gone. And in order to get 20% off and free shipping, use code OVERWATCH at checkout. Save your balls today.
Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Support players are playing a very different game in Overwatch 2. With two tanks and really overpowered team comps, it was often for support picks to hide behind a fortress of protection. Well, now the gameplay is right in your face, and you're put in do or die situations very often. So with all that said, the easiest supports to play are the ones that can get in and out of combat. There's a bit of a bias towards them because of the natural support passive that helps you heal after being out of combat for a duration. This is making the ones with the most mobility, Lucio and Moira, gain a disproportionate amount of value from that ability, in my opinion. Ana gets a buff from it too because she can reliably hide away from the combat and heal herself naturally without feeling like she'll have to use nade. But the other one's not so much. It's also not too much of a surprise that Lucio would be S tier. Early on in Overwatch 1's life, Lucio was also insane. And that was before he got his DPS duelist playstyle. He was a lot weaker actually, and more of a healer early in Overwatch 1. Now he straight up can take most DPS duels. So between that and getting your team between cover positions, taxing from respawn, for all manner of things, it's the best time ever to be playing Lucio, because you can spend more time on speed and facilitate the battle, whether it's going aggressive or even peeling back away from enemy ultimates, threat angles, and aggression. Moira also does really well in this environment. She's definitely strong, but I also think a bit overrated. See, she's best at healing tanks and surviving, which is very good in Overwatch 2, I think, early in the community's playstyle. As we'll get into later, targeting the tank is a lot trickier than you're used to. It's definitely possible, but you have to know what type of comp you're playing more in Overwatch 2, whereas in Overwatch 1, it always felt like if you just vaguely shot at the tank line, they'd fall over. Players are still doing that in Overwatch 2, and Moira gives the front line a ton of extra health, while being difficult to kill herself and able to duel. Because of this, I think Zen's actually quite underrated, and teamwork around Zen can do amazing things. If you want to easily kill the tank, well, Discord's a great way to do it, but you definitely will need to babysit Zen with Brig or Batiste, and that's just a playstyle I think a lot of players aren't used to, and it's more crucial where you position to get that to work. Whereas Moira and Lucio can just run around. Regardless of what they do to the balance of the game, I think those positional, crucial team comp styles will get an increase over time when we start to understand the positioning of the new maps and just Overwatch 2 in general. But for now though, running around in circles is really good. I thought Mercy would be better, And while she is mobile and enables DPS, in the neutral that's fine, but her big play, Resurrect, is pretty hard to set up in Overwatch 2. If your team can protect reses, then she's insane, but the other supports I think have a bigger peak of impact more reliably. For DPS, Soldier 76 is the easiest character to get value on, and although he can be countered, he's very reliable and can use his legs to get away from anything. So while he can either be dove or sniped, countering him is expensive for the team, either for positioning or, you gotta hit a skill shot. I predict a nerf to Soldier to come through in some form. If he took away the stack of the DPS passive buff on top of his legs sprint, that might just kill the character, but would definitely nerf him. I think having 30 bullets that do 20 damage is way over the top for Overwatch 2. When you were shooting at shields all game in Overwatch 1, it was weak. A nerf I'd like to see is having his ammo capacity reduced again, because I think he's just way too forgiving. Next up, the A tier of DPS are either the best flankers or snipers. There's a direct output on the DPS line where skill on some of these high skill ceiling picks will go far in the game. I really think Genji and Sombra probably should have been like in a A+ tier. Overwatch 1 fans may be the most surprised with Genji having his best meta ever. And well, that's what happens when the gameplay is moving away from stuns and more about the neutral game. And because there isn't a lot of stuns to punish Genji's Reflect, well, it's just working on everything, at least when it comes to fighting the other squishies. And on top of it, he has Dragon Blade as well, making him really strong in both phases of the game. Sombra as well, one of the strongest teamwork DPS that we've ever seen. Remember, Tracer got nerfed for Overwatch 2, where her damage is very unimpressive and just simply won't kill a lot of team comps. Tracer's skill ceiling is still high enough where you can do a lot with the character, which is why she's still an A, but I think Sombra is a lot more reliable. There's a lot of characters, especially tank characters that are otherwise hard to take down, that a Sombra hack can interrupt their channeling block abilities or Orisa's ultimate. She wipes out Sound Barrier, Coalescence. Yes, the ability Lockout is just for 1 second, but there's a lot of interruption plays that Sombra can make in Overwatch 2, and then on top of it, you can use it to combo with your team. Just remember, Sombra players, just because you can go invisible all the time doesn't mean you should. Sync up with your team and fight with them, and that's the key to victory with Sombra. I sort of feel like I have the sniper characters a bit too high in the list, because the truth is there's a ton of cover in Overwatch 2. Yes, there's only one tank, but they added cover to the old maps, and there's tons of flanks going on. I just think that if you've got the aim skill, the shots are there for you to have impact. When comparing to the other heroes in the DPS category, I couldn't really put most of them above Hanzo, Widow, and Ashe. Next tier I'm going to call the Tank Buster tier. These are characters that actually can kill the tanks. Mei's got the wall to isolate them, and the rest of them have high enough damage output that you can expect them to be able to kill the mega tanks in Overwatch 2. Otherwise, a lot of these other characters just simply don't have the damage. Yeah, the snipers have burst, but the other flanker type picks, they're just not built to deal enough damage to a tank's health pool. Whereas Assault Mode from Bastion or the big chunky projectiles from Junkrat have a large volume of damage that usually you don't need in most other duels, but against the mega tanks, they actually can take them down. Keep in mind, Reaper's damage did go down, so you won't be able to assume him to be able to take the squishy duels as easily as he did in Overwatch 1. Overwatch 2's Reaper, I think, plays the front line a bit more and sticks closer to the objective, which was kind of the opposite of the Overwatch 1 balance when they gave him more range. Now with the spread increase, I think it's usually better to help your tank win the tank battle. It may seem weird to see Junkrat as high as he is on this list, and it's not just because I'm a Junkrat specialist. I legitimately think he's getting slept on. I'll have a separate video dedicated to that, but the short answer is, he does have the damage to kill some of the tanks, but even better than that, the Overwatch 2 map design has way more cover, which gives Junk more positions he can play, but also for Junk to send concussion mines to displace enemies away from cover, and overall just dive bombing and feeding as a character is really good, whether it's Lucio, Genji, or whatever. Junk is another one like that, who can just blow up your backline too. He's a really good character, and I'm surprised people are so low on him, actually. The top tier players know how to counter him. but I also think in the beta, we don't have a lot of the Junkrat one tricks that climb the ladder regardless of how weak the character is supposed to be at higher tiers in ranked. He'll be counterable in a pre-made, but he thrives on the chaos of Overwatch 2. Don't sleep on him. In the C tier, I've got the flying heroes, which if you master, you can get stuff done with them. I just feel they're not really necessary when there's only one tank on the field and a lot of them don't protect anyway. There definitely is vertical cover to use in Overwatch 2. I just don't think you need to fly to get damage angles. Sojourn was insane in the alpha, but then she got tuned back and I think players figured her out. Like everyone in the C tier, if you have mastery, you can see them perform. But the amount of time it takes for Sojourn to fire her primary weapon, if you were just playing Soldier, you often will just get the kill anyway, not needing the railgun follow-up. And if you want a railgun, well, there's other snipers in the game that just have one all the time, which is of course a really cool character. And maybe we would find more useful if there was flyer characters in the game being prevalent, but they just aren't. In my opinion, the best things you can do is either off angle or dive the backline. And I think Sojourn actually wants to play tighter to her team than even Soldier needs to, which there's better options to target the tank, there's better options to target the backline. I'm not sure where she fits. Cassidy's rework makes him feel quite outdated. The sticky grenade is very, very good, but in order to use it, McCree often gets himself in one and done positions where he'll easily be traded out once he uses his cooldowns. If you're good enough with this kit, and especially the Peacekeeper, you can shoot your way out, but there's way easier options. The only D tier character is Symmetra, who if you don't have voice comms or coordination, just sort of spectates the game. She can be an S tier pick in a pre-made team if you're coordinating a traverse around the map and you all go in together, but if she's forced to have any other playstyle, she's really bad. For the tanks, it's a bit easy to evaluate because even the developers shouted out that Doom, Zarya, and D.Va are really good, but I'm going to label them as solo queue friendly. All three of them are tanks that you know what your job is all the time, so playing your own life and your own abilities, which do help the team. Like Doom wants to sync with the dive a lot of times. D.Va's a bit more defensive, but can punish backlines sometimes too. And Zarya's just a superpowered version of Zarya from Overwatch 1. All these characters play in that chaos and are very flexible, but also counterable, I think. I don't think they're like overtuned and there's nothing you can do. Ana's good against Doom, weak against the other two. If they have Zarya, your hit scans will be better, but your brawlers and divers will be worse. There's fair trade-offs here in the A tier. I don't think anything's broken. The B tier heroes here will rise a tier to be even better than the A tier ones if the team has teamwork around them. I mean, if a team knows how to play Rush, Rein's actually S tier. There's a lot of Rein players, though, that think their job is to stand on the cart and that's it. And yeah, a character like Orisa is just better at that. But if you run over the enemy and nonstop go take space and fights on your own terms, Rein's insane. And Winston, although not as lethal as Doom, they buffed his bubble so that it's going to provide your DPS a lot of space on the dive as well if you have coordination. You just won't expect him to get his own kills alone as easily as like a Doomfist might. But with most of the CC out of the game, Winston's definitely playable again. Sigma's probably the most underrated pick right now. It doesn't get picked a lot, but just like Junkrat, he has a lot of annoying, obnoxious positions he can hold. While he might feel a little glass when he gets run over, when you play your positions very smart and don't leave them, the damage Sigma can do is insane. The placing that might shock a lot of you is having Orisa in C tier. My very next video is going to be about countering Orisa, which is a lot easier than you think. Orisa's got a lot of skillful plays. If she hits her spear and shots, she has the damage to kill squishies, and she's incredibly durable, but that's it. If you play Reinhardt properly and actually rush, Orisa looks hilariously redundant as a brawler style tank. Horrible, like laughably bad. What Orisa thrives on is the very indecisive, pokey nature of that a lot of Overwatch players fall into, where they sort of just hide in the back and vaguely shoot at the tank line. Yeah, Orisa will look like the best tank in the game if that's how you play. But if you go at the backline or play greedier picks with higher damage that can actually kill the front line, in either case, Orisa looks silly, and you'll see that in the upcoming guide. The rework is amazingly fun, though. And if you're just so good at Orisa, maybe you can tier jump this list. Well, once players figure out the teamwork aspects of Overwatch 2, Orisa gets outshined very easily. She is, however, better than these next two picks, the last tanks on the list, Wrecking Ball and Roadhog. Orisa is just a better Roadhog now, in my opinion. Hog's got a more devastating stun, but Orisa's got way more durability. While Hog has some plays to make against Doom and D.Va, overall, over lots of team fights, over the course of an entire map, and especially when we start playing competitive, when you play both sides, it's going to be tough to get away with Hog for like a whole match. Because eventually a sleep dart's just going to be hitting you every time. Or I think the buffed Diva is just really easy to counter his tricky flanks. You swoop in, save a teammate from Hog only succeeds if you fail to counter him, and there's lots of counters. Wrecking Ball, I was surprised is as weak as he turned out to be, because you would think the 5v5 playstyles right up his alley. It just turns out they buffed the other tanks with similar diving playstyles more than they buffed Wrecking Ball. In comparison, even getting 1,000 health now with the buff adaptive shield doesn't look as good as Doomfist blocking 90% of frontal damage and then getting more damage himself because of it. Winston's got a shield and now ranged poke, which Wrecking Ball used to be decent at. Like his crossfires were good, but then they nerfed the range on it in Overwatch 1, so he doesn't shoot at range as good as Winston, and he doesn't dive as good as Doomfist. I'd be surprised if they don't buff him up a bit to have more toys or just be better at his job, so he can compete with either of them in that way. Well, guys, that's it for the tier list for the Overwatch 2 beta. Be sure to check out today's video sponsor, Manscaped, and get yourself a limited edition Purple Lawnmower 4.0. We're helping support a good cause, and they're simply the best when it comes to men's grooming. Hit the subscribe button and the bell icon to get notifications of our next coming videos sent directly to your cell phone. We've got a lot in the works that you're not going to want to miss out on. That's been it for me. I've been Frito from Your Overwatch. We'll see you guys next time.